Hi guys, we are still on the video series, 6 quick tips for creating better drawings. I am Mrs. H or Mrs. Harbaugh, and this is tips 2 and 3.
Tip number two is just some basic sketching tips. A lot of you uh, kind of have been drawing in a difficult way for a really long time. And I just want to show you a couple things that you can do physically with your pencil that makes your life a little bit easier. So this is a basics on how to sketch. Number one is start light. A lot of you guys start really, really dark. You take your pencil and you press really hard into the paper, and that kind of leads to it just gets difficult. It's hard for you to change what you're drawing as you're looking at it. It also makes it really hard to erase. So I always say start light. And then as far as your pencil strokes go, I say quadruple L, lots of little layered lines. And I'll show you that in a second. I also am going to show you how you don't have to get it right the first time and using the whole paper. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is start out light. So I just got two small objects that I had sitting around in my house for an example. I have a tiny little pumpkin, and I also have Harry Potter's golden snitch. Check that out. Okay, so I'm going to try to sketch this pumpkin first. I have my pumpkin right here, and this is the one I got from Target, so it has sparkles on it, but I'm not going to draw the sparkles. I'm just focusing on the shape. And see how, even though I'm using a 3B pencil, so it's a little bit softer, I am starting out really light. A lot of you guys start out really heavy, and then you can't fix it. So I'm looking at the stem. I'm not getting into too much detail. And I'm doing lots of little layered lines because I'm not going to get it right the first time. I kind of have to look at it and adjust. A lot of you guys will draw like this. You'll keep your pencil down like this. You'll move it around. You won't pick it up very much. You press down hard, and then before you know it, you don't like what you're doing. If you do lots of little layered lines like this, you can sort of, I did that and I realized it didn't go out far enough, so now I can fix it. You can sort of adjust. See how I'm going? Lots of little layered lines. I can fix it as I'm working on it. And I'm really, really looking at what I'm drawing. I'm not trying to make it up. So lots of little layered lines. It's that sketching. So a lot of you do this when you're drawing. I want you to think of moving your pencil more like this. That is what's going to really help you with your drawing. A lot of people don't do that, and it's really kind of a game changer. So here's my little pumpkin. And then I can go back and sort of clean it up a little bit. Like, I just realized that that stem is kind of in the wrong place, so I'm going to fix it. I like the rest of it. My stem is just off. So I go and I fix my stem. If you draw too dark, you can't fix it. Another thing that I said was using the whole paper. So you might not, so this is a nice for a little demonstration, but what would really make this so much better is if I use the whole paper. So a lot of you will turn in a drawing for me. So this is just a little practice, but a lot of my students will turn in a drawing and they will have just this tiny little part of it covered, but it actually becomes so much more of a interesting drawing if you make it bigger. The other advantage to that is a lot of times, see how I'm using my pencil strokes, lots of light layered lines, little layered light lines. The other advantage to that is if you have to do some detail, a lot of you guys, if your drawing is this small, it's really hard to get some serious detail in there. If it's bigger, you don't have to worry so much about the tight, tiny details. It's much easier to incorporate those. Even if you're doing little practices like this, then fill up your whole page with different practices. You can layer those. Don't waste a whole sheet of paper just on one tiny area. If you're going to work on a finished drawing, do it bigger. That's one of the biggest things that I say to my students. Also creating some sort of dimension. So Where is this pumpkin? Is it sitting on a step outside? You know, is it, I gave it somewhere, it's not just floating in space, it has something to be on. That will really change the way that you look at your drawings. And you don't have to include everything in it. You can see, I'm sort of just suggesting that this is sitting on a porch somewhere. I don't have to draw the whole porch. I just have to draw a little bit on the outside to make it work. The next tip kind of goes along with that. So I call it the 1 minute rule. I've had art teachers of mine call it the 1 minute rule, the 5 minute rule. The point is that a lot of you, and let me just lay this out for you, because I feel like this is very relatable with drawing. Have you ever started to draw something like, I'm just going to say a tree, because a lot of people will try to draw trees. Have you ever started to draw a tree, started from left to right, and focused so much on one leaf over here that you realize then that your whole picture isn't going to fit on the page, and then you have to kind of throw it away. Or started to draw a person, you start with you start with their face, and then you try to draw the rest of their body, and you realize that you can't fit their feet on the page. So that's how we kind of run into the 1 minute rule, which is sort of mapping out your whole picture, getting the composition right, meaning the way that things are generally located on the page, so that you really like it before you start adding crazy details. A good way to think of it is think of your drawing like a blurry picture. As you draw, it's like you're slowly focusing the lens. You're adding more and more and more detail. So I'm going to draw my tree here in 1 minute. So, hey Google, set a timer for 1 minute.
All right, 1 minute, starting now.
Okay. So let's just say I'm trying to draw a tree. You see, I'm not being detailed at all. I know I'm going to have some sort of roots. I know I'm going to have a big branch here, maybe. A branch here, a branch here. Same with this. Trees have lots of Y's in them, like the letter Y. So maybe I'm going to do that. Maybe I should do like a hill over here. See, I'm not really spending, it's kind of loose and sloppy. And I'm drawing light. I'm doing my lots of little layered lines, and I'm not worrying too much about detail. Then I can go in later and make this sharper. But I basically am drawing a rough sketch of my whole picture before I really start getting to the nitty-gritty. Okay, Google, stop. And there you go. I've drawn this whole picture, the basics of what I want here, in 1 minute. So that way I'm not starting with a leaf over here and then getting really frustrated when it doesn't fit. But then as I draw, I'm going to slowly sit here and start to add just a little bit more detail until I'm satisfied with it. But I've already created my guidelines.